Every year, thousands of people visit Costa Rica and wonder the same thing. What if I didn't have to leave? What if this wasn't a vacation? What if this could be home? From relocation and real estate to lifestyle, family, business, and community, this is the Breakthrough to Costa Rica podcast, presented by All in Guanacaste, your guide to life on Costa Rica's Pacific Gold Coast.
Welcome back to the Breakthrough to Costa Rica podcast, presented by All in Guanacaste. I'm Rob.
And I'm Jen.
Today we're talking about buying property in Costa Rica. These are the questions we get more than just about anything else. How does it actually work? Is it complicated? Can foreigners own property? Is it safe? There are a lot of myths out there. When we first started looking at Costa Rica, I assumed buying property here was going to be completely different. I remember thinking foreigners probably couldn't own property directly, or financing wouldn't exist, or there would be some huge legal hurdle that nobody talks about. What surprised me was how familiar most of the process actually felt. Different than Canada and the US? Absolutely. But not nearly as different as most people imagine.
Let's start with probably the biggest question. Can foreigners actually own property in Costa Rica?
Absolutely. You don't need residency. You don't need citizenship. You don't need a Costa Rican partner. Canadians and Americans can own titled property here, just like Costa Rican citizens. That's probably the biggest misconception I hear. People think they have to become residents before they can buy. That's simply not true. In fact, many people buy property years before they ever apply for residency. Some never apply at all.
What's the biggest mistake you see buyers making?
Most people think it's choosing the wrong house. It isn't. It's choosing the wrong town. People spend months comparing floor plans, months researching rental income, months looking at photos online. Then they spend about 10 minutes deciding where they actually want to live. That's backwards. The town matters more than the house.
Explain that.
Well, Tamarindo feels completely different than Potrero. Potrero feels different than Flamingo. Flamingo feels different than Playa Grande. They're all beautiful. They're all in Guanacaste. But they're completely different lifestyles. Some people want restaurants and nightlife. Some want a quiet beach town. Some want golf. Some want surfing. Some want to walk everywhere. Others want total privacy. The house is important, but you're really buying a lifestyle?
Have you actually seen that happen?
Many times. I remember one family from Ontario who came down convinced they wanted Tamarindo. They'd watched YouTube videos, read Facebook groups, looked at listings for months. They were absolutely certain. Then we spent a few days exploring different communities. By the end of the week, they completely changed their minds. They bought in Potrero instead. It was quieter, less traffic, still walkable, closer to the kind of lifestyle they were actually looking for.
So once the area is dialed in and someone finds the perfect property, what happens next?
The offer process is actually very familiar. We prepare an offer to purchase outlining the purchase price, closing date, deposit, due diligence period, and any special conditions. The buyer and seller negotiate back and forth until everyone agrees. Honestly, if you've bought a house in Canada before, this part feels very normal.
People hear the word escrow all the time. How does that work?
Typically, after an offer is accepted, the buyer has 10 days to deposit 10% into an independent escrow account. The escrow company acts as a neutral third party. They're there to protect both the buyer and seller. For Canadians, that sometimes sounds intimidating, but honestly, it's one of the reasons transactions here are so secure.
What about due diligence? I know people hear that phrase all the time.
And this is where your lawyer earns every penny. Your attorney verifies ownership, checks for liens.
The Breakthrough to Costa Rica
taxes
podcast
are paid,
presented by
All in
reviews zoning,
Guanacaste, verifies
And I'm
utilities,
Jen.
confirms
Today
legal
we're
access,
talking about something
looks into
that
water
almost
availability
everyone
for
asks
building lots.
before they move
Everything
to
gets
Costa Rica.
investigated. How much does
If
it actually
something
cost
significant
to
comes
live
up
here?
that you're not
And maybe
comfortable
more
with,
importantly,
this is
what are
generally
the
when
hidden
you can walk
costs
away
that
and
nobody
recover your
talks
deposit.
about?
So you're not
When
just
people
hoping
think about
everything
Costa
works
Rica,
out.
they
Not at
usually
all.
imagine a
A
cheaper
proper due
life.
diligence period
And
removes
sometimes that's
uncertainty.
true. That's
But it's
exactly
not
what
always
it's there
true.
for. Some things
I hear
are
people
significantly
talking about
less
buying through a
expensive than Canada
corporation.
or the
Do
States.
most people do that?
Some things are surprisingly
people
more
do.
expensive,
Not
and some
everyone,
expenses are
but
just
it's
completely
common.
different.
Many
I think
foreign
that's what
buyers purchase
surprised
through
me
a
the
Costa
most.
Rican
Before we
corporation
moved,
because
I
it can
assumed
provide some
everything would cost
advantages
less.
depending on how they
And then
plan
we
to use
arrived
the
and
property.
realized that's not really
Your
how it
attorney will
works.
explain whether it's the right Exactly. choice for your
Costa
situation.
Rica isn't
necessarily
There
a
isn't
cheap
one
country.
answer that fits
It's a a country where you can
Let's
design
talk
your
financing
lifestyle
because this
differently.
surprises a lot of people.
Let's start with
Most
housing
purchases
because that's
here are
usually the
still
biggest
cash
expense.
purchases,
Especially
if you're
under
renting,
about
costs
$500,000,
vary dramatically
depending
that's
on the
definitely
area.
different than
A
Canada.
small local
But
apartment
seller
might
financing,
be $600 or $700
or what's often
a
called
month.
vendor take
A
back
luxury
financing
ocean
is
view
actually
condo
pretty
can be
common here,
$3,000
and what's
a
interesting
month or
is
more.
that's exactly how
And
we
if you're
bought our house.
buying,
Well, I know
location
that
matters
because
even
I was
more.
there. We
A
went
property
through the
5
entire
minutes from the
process.
beach might cost
When we bought our
dramatically
place, we
less
actually
than
used
seller
directly
financing.
overlooking the ocean.
So we didn't just learn
I
about
think
it
people
after the fact
sometimes
because
compare
I'm in real
Costa Rica
estate.
prices
We
to what they
negotiated
paid
the
20
terms
years
directly
ago.
with the seller.
That's a big one.
Worked through the legal
Costa Rica
side with
today
our
is very
attorney,
different than
signed all
Costa
the
Rica
documents
20 years ago.
made the payments.
Guanacaste
The whole thing
especially is
was that
seen incredible
intimidating?
growth.
Honestly,
You're no
before we
longer
started,
comparing
yes.
prices to a
I didn't really know
developing
what to
beach region.
expect.
You're
But
comparing
once everything
prices
was
to an
explained,
international
it actually made a
destination
lot of sense.
that attracts buyers
The
from
terms
North
are
America,
all
Europe,
negotiated
and
between
beyond.
the buyer and seller.
Things
What
like
about
the down
groceries?
payment, interest rate,
Everybody
payment
asks
schedule,
about
and length of
groceries
the loan are
and
all
the
written
answer
into
is,
the purchase
it
agreement.
depends what you buy.
Your attorney makes
If
sure
you're buying
everything is
local
properly
fruit,
registered
vegetables,
and
rice,
legally protected.
beans, eggs,
It
and
ended up
locally
being a
produced
really
products.
smooth
Costs
process.
can be very
So
reasonable.
it isn't just
But if you're
some
trying to
handshake
recreate your
agreement
shopping
between the
cart
buyer
from
and seller.
Costco back home,
Not
you're
at all.
probably going to be surprised.
Everything is documented.
Imported products
It's all
often cost
registered.
significantly more.
Everything is
Certain
handled
cheeses,
professionally.
specialty
And
foods,
because we've
brand name
personally gone through
products,
the process
some
ourselves,
imported alcohol,
I think it gives
many
us a
imported
different
household
perspective when
items.
clients
Those
ask
things
about
can add
seller
up quickly.
financing.
We're not just
I
explaining
remember the
how
first
it
time we
works.
went
We've
shopping and
actually lived
realized
it.
our favorite
Can
products
people
weren't
still get
always
traditional
available.
financing?
That's part of the
They're
adjustment.
starting to. We're seeing
People
more
often
private
discover
lenders
they
and
don't just
international
move
financing
countries, they
options
change
than we
habits.
did a few years
You
ago.
start buying different
But
foods,
seller financing
different
is
brands,
still one
different
of the more
products,
common options
and eventually
for a
many
foreign
people
buyer,
realize they're eating
especially
fresher
when
and
the seller
simpler
is
than they did
motivated
before.
and both parties can agree on terms.
Let's talk about vehicles.
What should
because
buyers
that's a big
budget
one.
for closing costs?
Vehicles are
A good
probably
rule
one
of
of the
thumb is
biggest
around
surprises.
5% of the purchase price.
Cars in
That
Costa
includes
Rica
legal
are generally
fees,
more expensive than many
taxes,
people
registration
expect.
fees,
Import
escrow
taxes
costs,
can be
lawyers'
significant.
fees.
Used vehicles
Unlike
often
Canada,
hold their
the
value
buyer often
extremely
pays
well,
most of those
and
costs.
maintenance costs vary depending
This
on the
next
vehicle.
one always shocks me.
Toyota parts are
Every
generally
single
easy to
time.
find.
Costa
Some
Rica's
luxury
annual
brands can be
property
more
tax is
challenging
only
and more
1/4
of 1%.
We've definitely
Many people
learned
pay
that
less
one
for an
firsthand.
entire year here than
We
they used to
have.
pay in 1 month.
We've had our
back
vehicle
home.
in the shop
People
for
usually
months at
think
a
I've
time.
forgotten a zero.
No
somewhere.
exaggeration.
Okay,
Okay.
quick answers. Ready?
And then there's
Let's do
fuel.
Do I need
Fuel
residency
prices
before
fluctuate,
buying?
but people
No.
should understand that
Do I need to
gasoline
speak
often
Spanish?
costs more than they're
A
used
big
to
plus,
in North
but
America. No, your
the
realtor
difference
and
is
attorney
that
will
many
guide you
people
through
end
the
up
process.
driving less.
Can I buy remotely?
Your lifestyle changes.
You can.
You're not
People
commuting
do it
an
all the
hour
time.
each way to work
If you
every
can't
day.
be
here for the closing, then with the proper
Healthcare
setup,
is
the
another
lawyer can
interesting
sign on your
category.
behalf.
Is
Healthcare
buying
is
here
one of the
actually
areas where
complicated?
many people are pleasantly
really.
surprised.
Different?
Costa Rica has
Absolutely.
both public and private
Complicated?
healthcare systems.
Not if you
Private
have the right
healthcare
team
is
around
often
you.
significantly
So,
more
if
affordable
someone
than
listening
people
is thinking
expect.
about buying
Many
property in
expats
Costa
pay
Rica,
directly for
what's the
appointments
biggest
and still
takeaway?
spend far less
Don't
than they would in
overcomplicate
the
it.
United States.
Buying property
and
in
many
Costa Rica
specialists
isn't
can be
nearly
seen
as
much faster than
intimidating as
people
most
are used
people
to.
think.
The key is surrounding
What about
yourself with the right
utilities?
professionals.
A good
Utilities are
realtor,
interesting.
a good attorney,
Water
proper
is
due
usually
diligence
inexpensive,
process,
and maybe
Internet
most
is
importantly,
generally
choose
affordable.
the right
But
community
electricity can
before
surprise
you
people,
choose the right house.
especially
Because the
if your
house can
running
always
air
be
conditioning
renovated
all day long.
The lifestyle is what
A
you're
lot of
really
newcomers
buying.
arrive from
And
colder
that's something we
climates
learned
and suddenly
ourselves after
discover they
making the
love
move.
having the AC
If you're thinking about
running
buying
24
property in
hours a
Costa
day.
Rica and
That
you'd
can
like some
create
honest
some
advice
unexpected
about the
bills.
different communities in Guanacaste,
Let's talk about something
Visit
people don't usually put in their
allinguanacaste.com.
budget.
Thanks for listening,
lifestyle
and until
spending.
next time,
Stay
that's
warm.
a great point.
or come south.
Because one thing happens to almost